What is up, everyone? Brian Zane here to give you my thoughts on this past weekend's Fastlane PLE from Indianapolis. It was a bit late getting this one out because, like I mentioned in the predictions video, I was booked in a show in Portland at the same time. So finally I had some time this week early on to sit down and catch up to it and give you my thoughts. You know, this is one of those B shows, as it's called, so not a ton of expectation on these events, but you know, they are all big matches on paper, so we'll see how it turns out. First off, the big story that broke during the kickoff show before the main show began was the arrival of the newest signee for WWE, Jade Cargill. They're referring to her by the name that she has had in AEW. It doesn't sound, for the moment at least, they're giving her a new name. And she came out there, she got out of the car, shook hands with Triple H, and they really rolled out the red carpet. They really talked her up big time on commentary when she arrived, just, you know, showing you more how much they appear to be invested right now in the development of Jade now in WWE. I think that just based on this initial kind of treatment for her in this first fleeting moment we saw of her, they definitely want to put a lot of stock in her, and the sky seems to be the limit. The show officially begins with a match for the Undisputed tag titles as the Judgment Day's Balor and Priest defend against Cody Rhodes and It's Just Him, Jey Uso. The story in this matchup has nothing to do with, you know, Cody and Jey as, like, can they trust each other? Do they have the same amount of chemistry as the other team? That's not really an issue in this matchup. Some interesting moments in this one. Cody hitting a gut buster on Balor. The camera almost misses. Jey taking a lot of the heat in this first part of the matchup, showing that struggle of reaching out for the tag, getting closer each time. Jey finally tags into Cody, who hits a big superplex, tags Jey back in right away, who does a little taunt where he takes his shirt off, puts it on the head of his opponent, then hits him. Jey hits a spear, and then we see Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio of the Judgment Day showing up, causing chaos. A blind tag and a scary-looking Hurricane Rana by Priest. JD accidentally thwacks Damian in the leg with the briefcase. Cody hitting Crossroads on him on the table. We get a double team Cody cutter to Balor in the ring, the Crossroads, the cover, and the win, and Cody and Jey are the new tag team champions. I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. This was a fun story. I enjoyed the finish of the match, how the Judgment Day's involvement ended up costing their own team the matchup. I was pretty shocked, though, the fact that Cody and Jey are actually the new tag team champions. I mean, for some reasons I mentioned in the predictions video, it seems a bit counterproductive for the new solo star Jey Uso to immediately be slotted into a tag title run with another historically singles guy. And Cody has finished the story, apparently. He won his championship, but he's also teaming with the guy who cost him the match at WrestleMania. And I mean, I know they apparently have water on the bridge now. Honestly, if we get more of the Jey and Cody that we saw in the post-show press conference, then I am 100% on board with this partnership now. It's like, yes, that is the tandem. That is the bond that I want to see played out on television. There's a backstage bit with Booker T, Wade Barrett, and Xavier Woods talking about ordering pizza. Wade dropping a Bad News Barrett reference, but he's like, psych, he actually loves pizza. Up next, the 6-man tag match as Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits take on the LWO. There is no third man as of this point. Ray did make a phone call on SmackDown and apparently still waiting for that call to be fielded. And so the story here is 3-on-2 handicap match. And I think that the Street Profits and Lashley have a good thing going. Their chemistry here is really solid. I did really enjoy all their matching wrestling gear and whatnot. Lashley gets a blind tag mid 619, catching Ray to put a stop to his run. Mysterio is worked over but is able to use his evasiveness to stay alive. Zelina Vega gets involved at one point when Montez yoinks Escobar off the apron. Mysterio is all alone when who shows up but Carlito. We've not seen him since Backlash in Puerto Rico. Also coming out to new theme music that is not nearly as cool, no pun intended, as his original theme, the one that's identifiable, the one that everyone knew at Backlash earlier this year. Come on, guys. Why mess with a perfectly good formula? Carlito gets the hot tag. Escobar dives into Lashley, hits the backstabber onto Ford to win for the LWO. And now it's time for a sponsored pizza break. 3 stars out of 5 for me. I thought the match was fine. I mean, this was another kind of surprising end for me. I guess that, the surprise of Carlito being the third man is going to trump, whatever momentum you're trying to build with this new stable in Lashley and Dawkins and Ford. I was assuming that those guys are going to get the win to keep their momentum going. But with Carlito coming back, if Carlito is going to be showing up more regularly and be, a full-time member of the LWO, then I think this was a good way to introduce him more after that kind of soft re-debut in Puerto Rico earlier in the year. I think Carlito is a guy who I didn't really appreciate all that much in his first run many years ago. And so I'm definitely a lot more open-minded about it now, and I want to see now that he's back and still looks to be in great shape and whatnot, and clearly still has name recognition and name value considering how he was responded to when he came out this past Saturday. Yeah, I'm willing to see what he can do now. Women's Championship triple threat match here as Io Sky defends against Asuka and Charlotte Flair, not Bayley. I want to apologize for my erroneous error that I had in the first draft of the predictions video, but as it stands here now, this is the match we have. Right at the beginning of the matchup, though, you got Asuka spraying some Arctic Rush flavored mist in Charlotte's face. She's out of the picture for a minute while Asuka and Io wrestle for a bit on their own. Charlotte comes back in with a boot. She gets a lot of moments on top here. She's really pictured as the one to beat in this match, presented as the biggest threat. She suplexes both women at once at one point. The Irish whip is countered. Io just goes right out of the ring and into Charlotte on the outside. Io goes for a moonsault to Asuka on the outside, kind of whiffs it. Charlotte does her own version that gets a bit more contact. You've got this impressive Tower of Doom coming out of the corner here. Io breaking up a figure 8 with a Meteora. Asuka kicking out of a Charlotte spear. Suddenly Bayley arrives to help her partner in Sky. The figure 8's locked in on Asuka. Bayley up on the apron distracting the ref. That allows Io to hit the moonsault on Charlotte mid-hold, the cover and the win for Io to retain. I'm going to give it 4 stars out of 5. This was a real unexpected delight for me. I think this match was at risk of being wasted on this audience because for the first several minutes, this crowd was dead quiet for whatever reason. These ladies were early on pulling out all the stops, and you could hear a pin drop early on with this matchup for whatever reason. But by the end, they definitely got the crowd woken up and far more into it. These 3 ladies had a great chemistry. I do think it was at times a bit heavy on making Charlotte look strong, but then when you got all 3 ladies working together after that point and going and seeing what the tail end of that story is, then I think what they did looked really good. Local boy Pat McAfee shows up to join commentary for the next match. First, he's in the ring. He's got one of those Colts-themed title belts. By the way, a brilliant merchandising partnership, by the way, with the NFL. It's amazing that they waited this long to have those kind of team-specific championship belts. But hey, you know what? It's going to make them a lot of money. McAfee makes a pitch for WrestleMania to be in Indianapolis soon, kind of like what Cena did for London earlier this year at Money in the Bank. Speaking of whom, here comes John Cena for this next match, as Cena and LA Knight take on Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa of the Bloodline. Quick question based on how the comment section went in the predictions video. Do you consider it to be Los Angeles night or Louisiana night? Please let me know in the comment section. Paul Heyman's finally embraced the gray, which is weird to see, but generally I do like it when wrestlers, older wrestlers have done that. I think that, Ted DiBiase never looked sillier than when he was trying to fight that and had his hair still dyed really dark brown, even into his 50s and stuff. So when he was starting to go gray and saw it on NXT, I'm like, oh, that's a nice look for him. And I've always kind of thought it'd be cool that, if The Undertaker in his later years didn't just keep dyeing his hair black, if he had just kind of embraced aging and having the gray to show he was more this weathered, badass warrior, that could have looked really cool. There's a massive LA Knight chant to start the match off, and the story here is that Cena takes so much offense from the Bloodline for most of this matchup. It's strange seeing John Cena in this kind of position. It's kind of a rarity, especially, he in the tag team format, for him to be the one taking so much punishment is very much unlike Cena. But I think that it is very noble of him. It's very giving of him to literally just sell so much and give so much for his opponents. I mean, it's making the Bloodline look really strong in here, and it's going to make LA Knight look even more heroic when he eventually gets that hot tag. And he does. He goes ham on everyone for a while until he takes a super kick. LA is able to recover. We even see Cena hit a top rope crossbody. It's responded to, though, with another Uso splash. Cena's got Solo up for an AA, but Jimmy with another super kick. A superplex leads to Cena hitting the 5-knuckle shuffle onto Jimmy, followed by LA Knight's BFT for the win. 2.5 stars out of 5 for me here. This matchup, it was a pretty simple match. Like I said, most of the story was just Cena getting beat up. And then once the hot tag came into LA Knight, it felt like it was academic. This is a match that didn't need to be a knockdown, drag-out affair. The match was basic, but the significance of this moment for LA Knight especially was the big deal. This is kind of another kind of piece of the coronation where, last month at Payback, he got the moment where Cena raised his hand. This month they do it again, but they're tag team partners. And so, LA Knight is getting more of that cred and more of that, that star rub, but it doesn't feel forced or it doesn't feel like it's ineffective. I think that LA Knight and Cena as a pairing right now in this kind of limited capacity, it's really working for both of them. And again, what a great opportunity for LA Knight, a huge opportunity for him. And I think that as far as that's concerned, he certainly came through in a big way. Backstage in the Judgment Day's lair, Damian Priest says he's not going to go home empty-handed, plans to cash in his Money in the Bank, but Rhea Ripley gets in his way, convincing him to put away the briefcase. Well, that certainly subverts expectations, because we've seen that sort of thing happen before where somebody with the Money in the Bank match does double duty. They might lose their earlier matchup, then swoop in at the end and cash in to win. We've seen it done before, and there was a part of me that thought we might get that on this show, especially after seeing the Judgment Day lose. And you kind of indicated as much with this backstage segment, but by them taking that out of the equation, on the one hand, it's like, oh, you don't get that surprise anymore, but it's nice in a way that they kind of took that out of the discussion. So you don't have that, is it going to happen? Won't it? Main event matchup, it's a last man standing for the World Heavyweight Championship as Seth F. Rollins defends against Shinsuke Nakamura. It is the second time these two have faced off in a Fastlane pay-per-view. Only the last time it took place, it was in front of 0 fans as opposed to roughly 14,000 for this one. It's definitely a big brawl from the get-go, and the story is all about Seth Rollins is back. We get a "We Want Tables" chant early in this matchup, taking a few minutes, but Seth does oblige, pulling out some tables to a huge pop. Shin bringing out the nunchucks at one point. He's attacking Seth like he has been imbued with pizza power. At one point, Shinsuke just whomps the hell out of Seth the Grouch with a kendo stick. More back and forth. Many 10 counts are initiated and eventually broken. A table set up in the corner. Shinsuke goes for an attack but misses. The table doesn't fully break. They make their way to the crowd and into the stands. Rollins is hit with a low blow, kicked off the ledge, and falls onto what is very obviously a crash pad. This moment got a lot of flack on social media. There was one tweet or a post that I saw of a wider shot where you can blatantly see the crash pad, whereas when WWE broadcast it, they had it like you saw him like bounce enough you could tell, oh, that's not concrete or anything he landed on. And I'm not going to begrudge the wrestlers for using safety precautions, preventative measures. Yes to safety. I am fully in support of crash pads or the padding on the outside or whatever. And when you're doing a big stunt like that, especially, extra padding in Elimination Chamber, for instance, instead of steel floors. My one thing is, if you're going to use the crash pads and take those preventative measures, you've got the ability to dress it up so it does not look like you're landing on a crash pad. AEW's been lambasted for this, rightfully so, a couple of times over the years. WWE doing a lot of the same things sometimes. It seems like it's a lot tougher than one would think in order to properly disguise these sorts of things or to shoot around these things so it doesn't look so obvious. It did take me out of it a little bit, but at the same time, it's like these folks are making movies, they're telling stories. So the live crowd might not get that full experience because they'll see the crash pad. But the trick is, if it's a TV project, you gotta try and convince it and use smoke and mirrors for the TV audience that it really happened. And I don't think that the way they filmed this particular one was the best. And generally, though, I'm not going to complain about crash pads. Yay, wrestlers having longer, healthier lives in the name of safety. Seth taking a back bump on the exposed concrete minutes later. Shinsuke with a hell of a knee drop off the second rope through a table on the outside. Nakamura just laying the hell out of Seth with the chair, but Seth keeps getting up. We find both men at the top of a ladder. Shinsuke with the red mist. Seth falling back through the table. Still is able to answer before the 10 count. They go back into the crowd area. Seth hitting the pedigree on a platform, followed by the stomp. Then a Falcon Arrow through the table below. Rollins barely beats the count and wins to retain, and that's how the show wraps up. I'm going to give this main event 4 stars out of 5. I thought it was another great showing between Rollins and Nakamura. I do think that Seth's selling was really good. I mean, I'm not sure the degree of how true, how bad the back injury is in real life as opposed to kayfabe. But if it's anything like what they're saying in kayfabe, then I think Seth is definitely one of the tougher guys to be competing the way he is with that bad back. I do feel bad, though, for Shinsuke at this point. How often over the years have we seen him in this position where he's always going to be like the challenger and he's never going to get that big moment? He's always there as a setup for a guy to build up another guy and lose for them. And on one hand, there's nothing really wrong with that. There's always going to be those carpenters. There's always going to be those guys who build up the bigger stars and who may never get a chance at a championship. It's just frustrating that it's happened so often on such a high profile level with Shinsuke. And, I guess that point where it's kind of entering that Dolph Ziggler territory where it's, yeah, you can be in a world championship match, but it's like everyone kind of knows the outcome of that. And it kind of takes some of the mystique out of it, or the mystery, I would say. I mean, it doesn't take anything away from this match, though. I'm just, wondering, they took that option away of Damian Priest, and it makes you wonder what's going to come next for the belt. My grade for the Fastlane PLE is a B+. I think it's really similar in quality and enjoyment to Payback the previous month. I think it's going to take a couple of dings for me, though, comparatively. This was a solid, if you're going to call it a B show. I think did a really good job progressing storylines. You had some surprise in terms of that tag title match up there and the return of Carlito. Again, you get that validation for LA Knight, which is really strong, and you've got a really solid, entertaining main event, even though it's like, come on, like how much more can we get out of these two, and how often can we see Shinsuke in a position like this where he can main event and be treated as this big threat, but continuously not come through in the end. But as far as just like a show, I think this was a really solid event. But those are just my thoughts, folks. What did you think of Fastlane? Where do you think Jade Cargill is going to end up first in WWE? Let me hear about it in the comment section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Hit that bell icon to get all the notifications. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.